Hello.
Well, hello, hello. How are you?
I am doing okay. How about yourself?
I'm doing so good. It's good to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us for our next conscious conversation.
Yes, I'm excited. Let's stir the pot a little bit.
We love to stir the pot.
You gotta
Um,
stir the pot.
well, first, just wanted to thank you, Sampson, for joining us, and welcome everyone to the next conscious conversation by Can't Stop Won't Stop Consulting. If it's okay with you, I'm going to read a little bit of your bio so folks who know who we're talking with and who's our featured guest for today. So Sampson is a comedic force of nature, LGBTQ comedy pioneer and icon, and an award-winning creative visionary who has headlined venues, including the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts, the Hollywood Laugh Factory, and sold out shows around the country for over 2 decades. He was the first LGBT comic to perform at a Smithsonian institution at the National Museum of African American History and Culture. He's been on BET, Fox Soul, Viceland, TV One, and the 2017 Oscar-nominated film I Live Here, Love the One You're With on Amazon Prime, and co-executive produced and appears in the film B-Boy Blues, currently streaming on BET Plus.
Yes, I did all that. Wow.
You did. To take a moment to soak that in and to thank you again for taking some time so folks can hear more of your story and learn more about what's going on. And to stir the pot, as you said.
Mm-hmm.
So one question I would like to start off with that we ask all of our guests on the Conscious Conversations is, in the spirit of Ella Baker, who are your people?
Oh, that's a good one. My people are the people who sit in the car and smoke weed before they go in the house. Those are my people. There is a certain a certain spirit, okay, Greg, that you got to connect to. No, I'm just playing. It's seriously the people who sit in the car and smoke weed before they go in the house. Those are my people. Very reflective people who are able to observe life for what it is, and learn. It's something we have to learn, not to take it too seriously, and also people who make things happen regardless of the circumstances. Because I'm one of those people, and when you aren't always the person that people put their money on first, although you have all the things, there is a certain power in being able to show up and own who you are anyway.
Oh, I appreciate that. And I imagine there are a lot of people who are at the intersections of those different experiences too. So thank you for sharing that. My next question for you, which I think is kind of related to the response to your first question, but when was the last time you felt brave?
No shit. By the way, thank y'all for the comments. Every day. And I think that many of us, we don't give ourselves the credit that we deserve for what it takes to be brave, and actually observe the fact that in this world that we live in, there was a meme I saw online that said sometimes the biggest blessing is just to leave your house and make it back home. Sometimes that's brave, just to leave your house. And then if you are someone who has to overcome different mental issues every day, that takes a lot of bravery. So if you go into the world and you do that while facing anxiety, or you do that while facing whatever, the different things that we have, that takes bravery. And I will say that I am brave every single day, and I'm very proud of myself.
Thank you for that reframe. Your response reminds me of that quote that says, like, my sheer existence is resistance. That because we are unique, and because we bring our full selves and all of our identities to the surface, and some folks don't always necessarily appreciate that. in this kind of mainstream world that we are trying to shift and stir up, that just literally being, just like to your point, walking outside could feel like a form of resistance to folks, especially as we try to challenge what is mainstream and what is considered should be or could be considered of value, right? So
Yes.
I know I read a little bit about of your bio and of all of the a lot of the major accomplishments that you have. I would love if you could share with folks and share with me and us, like, what led you on this journey? What got you to do the work that you are doing and have been doing?
Oh, and I'm seeing the comments. Hey, everybody. Um, I would say what got me into it was it is a calling. Uh, Especially as I get older and I think about what it takes to continue showing up and to continue to stretch and grow and evolve into who I need to be and able to, in order to be able to show up, not just for myself on a continuous basis, but also to create the things that I put out into the world and interact with the world the way that I do. It's not something that I would have chosen. It's not something that I would have said, oh yeah, this is what I'm gonna go do. This is something that I've been able to do since I was a kid. And, it led me up to this point. And I think everybody has that thing. I think everybody has that thing, that line that they have to continue to follow to get them to where they need to go. We all have that.
So to follow up to that, so when did you know it was your calling, or was there like a moment or impetus where you were like, you know what, this is it, or you had a particular experience and that experience led you to say, okay, you know what, I'm really gonna really dig in here. Wait, what led to that calling, or what inspired the calling?
I got high one night. No, I'm just playing. I think several things. There have been many interactions that I've had with people on the road, where sometimes as folks, especially as queer creatives, especially as queer creators of color, and I've been doing this now for over 20 years. And you have to, we're still businesses. We still are people who navigate the changing world. And, we still have to figure out how to navigate a changing business. And so sometimes you do wonder, is what I'm doing important? Does it matter? And, I continue to meet people who say, I love what you're doing. Please don't stop. Some folks are watching B-Boy Blues. Thank y'all for supporting B-Boy Blues. Thank you. Stuff like that. The thank yous, and you don't need it all the time, because I don't do it for the praise, but I definitely do it because it is how I interact with the world.
Yeah, I think one thing that I'm thinking about as you're sharing your response to that is how important it is, though, to have that as especially out queer creatives, that affirmation is not always like that shows up and comes to you in different ways. Sometimes it's public, sometimes it's private, sometimes it's people streaming something, sometimes it's people.
Oh, I like it. Oh, I like it when it comes to me private. No, I'm just playing.
Sampson said, hit up the DMs. But I think it's also okay to name, to affirm and say, like, we all appreciate, even if it's not necessarily all the time, that affirmation. And how do we actually provide that? And at least one way that I think about it for my people and the people that I love and care about is, how am I offering that and creating space where we could, it seems natural to give love versus just getting the critique and the challenges. Like, yes, I want people who can be honest with me, but also like that, for me, building a culture of appreciation, of affirmation, of love, especially while folks are still with us in flesh, is so critical. And so I want to just say, like, I appreciate you. I appreciate the path that you help blaze for folks and continue to blaze and uplift others. That's one thing that I really love about how you leverage your platform is you actually lift up others, especially other queer creatives of color. So I wanted to just say thank you, because I I don't think not everyone does that who has a platform, and not everyone who does that lifts up other folks. And so I just want to just say that appreciation to you here, for sure.
And I hope you know I appreciate you too very much, because the work that you do, especially on the ground, in the community, like you do direct community work, and that's not easy. So I appreciate you, and I appreciate the people in the comments. I'm seeing the names, and I recognize some of the names. I appreciate y'all joining us and being interested.
For sure. You know, I know the last couple of years in particular have been challenging for folks. Everything from us trying to navigate a global pandemic together, the ongoing interpersonal and systemic violence that continues to impact Black and Indigenous and people of color communities. And so I just want to just, you know, name that, and I know that there's a lot that's been that folks have been holding. I also feel like it's important to name moments of joy or things that have made us proud. And so I would love, over the last year or two, what have been some of your proudest moments that you'd want to share?
Well, y'all might have been in the house during the pandemic, but I wasn't. I was getting those $13 airplane fares going on vacations, okay? Them airplane tickets was cheap as hell. I was taking vacations. I was like, we are about to die, and I need to go sit in some sunshine. Like you have to find the joy. And of course, making sure that you laugh whenever you can. I think so many of us, you know, have to learn to not take life so seriously, you know, and so we have to let go, and that involves an element of trust. And I think especially as Black folks, especially as people of color, especially as all those, and being a queer person, it's not so easy to trust. But I think that learning how to do that is essential to our joy. You have to. Joy means acceptance, accepting life as it is, accepting your power to change life, you know, accepting that things can always change for the better, and embracing that just every single day.
Yeah. Was there a particular trip that stands out, or that you particularly had a great time at?
Oh, I went to New Orleans, and it was the pandemic. People were still out there on what is that, Bourbon Street? They were still out there on Bourbon Street, drunk. I was like, you get the Rona, and you get the Rona, and you get the Rona. Where else? I went to Miami. Where else did I go? I went out, and we took a few road trips.
Okay.
And in the middle of the pandemic, I shot 2 films. I shot B-Boy Blues, and I shot another film on Amazon Prime called Love the One You're With.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about those 2 films, because I feel like as people are putting in the chat, they've been, of course, watching it, streaming it. Was there anything that that inspired you in particular about these films, or anything that you think would be interesting for folks to know about your experience shooting those films?
Oh, you want me to be very honest?
Stir the pot, Sampson, stir the pot.
We're about to stir the pot.
Okay.
So there were several things. Number one, I have been doing comedy for over 20 years, and I don't say it out loud. I don't stand in it, and because I'm just like, I know I'm the shit. I don't got to tell people I'm the shit. Just be the shit if you're the shit. But I have been doing this for over 2 decades, and you know, in order to get people to come out, yeah, you can be great, but people also want to see you in movies. They want to see you on TV and stuff like that. And I was not able to book anything on television or film. And I say there are even some people who know me. They know my work, and they were in positions to be able to say, hey, I know this will help you, so won't you come do this guest spot on this TV show or whatever. And since that was not happening, I don't wait around for people to give me things. So I went and I started creating my own films. And, you know, I did some very great work. I will say that. And it was also learning how some people, particularly in this industry, operate. It was important for me to do that because I understand how important it is to give other people opportunities and make sure that, you know, they're able to do some of the things that they see themselves doing. And because my attitude for a long time, because I worked really hard to get to where I am, but my attitude for a long time was I work hard, so y'all got to work hard. Had to learn was no, you have overcome these things and you've gained the knowledge that you have. You know, you have the talent that you have so that you can make it a little bit easier for people coming up. And so that's what I started doing. And those were my reasons.
And now that you filmed these, like film them, they've been streaming. Do you feel like on the other side of the experience and after you filmed it, do you feel like it is having that kind of impact that you were hoping for?
It is. Also, I did we shot Party and Play before the pandemic, right before the pandemic. Then we did another one, Love the One You're With. So I should say, Love the One You're With was one of the most streamed LGBTQ films on Amazon Prime when it came out. I think it came out last year. And it was number 13 in the UK for LGBTQ films. And a film that I financed out of my pocket. I do think that people have some catching up to do. I've been one of the greats for a long time, and I'm going to continue to put out work and put out more work and put out more work, and it's going to keep getting better and better. And thank you, Vincent. And I'm going to keep putting out work that's better and better, and people will catch up. You don't wait for people to acknowledge your greatness. You keep being great, and when they catch up, you be like, y'all late.
Right. I want to hold that because I feel like that is something that I think a lot of folks struggle with, but especially queer folks, is especially depending on the kind of coming out, or as I like to say, like letting people in stories that, like what your experience was and how people within your communities and families and friends like learned or got to know all those aspects of your identity and how open people were being about it, now yourself being about it. And so, like, know your own greatness, own that greatness. And if folks are delayed or don't don't understand it as quickly, then that's on them, not on you. So
and what I found too, Greg, is that some people, when they have direct access to you, they see it, but a lot of people are afraid to say it. A lot of people, they don't know their own. So, you know, if you're walking among them, they're not going to give that to you. But it's funny because it'll be people who like know you, who have direct access to you, who aren't, you know, who should have your back a little bit more.
Yeah.
It's the people who you don't know who will be like, oh my God, I'm loving this. Or it will take you doing this thing that, according to how we judge, is good enough to finally give a person their credit for, but whatever.
How do you navigate that? Or how do you recommend or encourage others to navigate that? Because I imagine that's, you know, I definitely have that experience. I feel like I hear folks kind of say sometimes it's the ones that you know that are in your circles that maybe aren't necessarily, you know, always as supportive as maybe you want them. How have you navigated that, especially being being one of the pioneers and one of the folks who have blazed trails? Like, I imagine that there was probably different moments or experiences that you've had to kind of to work through or to navigate. What's your advice for folks navigating that now?
Be your own cheerleader. Be you know, one thing I also learned too was as you start to grow, as you really step into being who it is that you are, who you know you are, is you realize that sometimes the people who you have the longest history with aren't good for you, or they are only comfortable with this small idea of you. They aren't able to truly embrace the freedom, required for you to truly be who you are. And, so that is something that you have to learn. And so sometimes it may mean walking alone for a little while. Sometimes it might just be you and your partner. Sometimes it might just be you. But you have to be willing to take that walk to get to where you got to go. And, on this journey, the people that you do need, they will show up. And even sometimes on that journey, alone, Greg, you will get little guardian angels who will keep assisting you. But it's not, a lot of people think that being in this business, and for some people it is, glamour, but I think for the people who take it as a true calling, I think that it is definitely a faith journey. It's not fun. It's something you really have to commit your life to.
And I think that's also why I'm even, as I'm hearing more, and I'm even more appreciative and wanting to continue to affirm you for also not only navigating, going through those experiences, but also still finding opportunities and moments to lift others up, especially other queer creatives and other queer creatives of color. Because I feel like that's a tension sometimes that I feel, especially with some other folks I talk to, is like, how do you balance the experience that you had and maybe feeling shut out or shunned or had some kind of particular experience with, like, not necessarily passing on that trauma or that experience to other people. And it's hard because, we're humans, and I think that we are still learning how to even navigate those traumas and experiences. And some folks are able to get therapy, some folks are able to get other access to other kinds of resources, but not everyone's able to get it at the same way. So it's I like to say an ongoing journey of learning and unlearning, right? Sometimes I feel like the things that I need to unlearn is harder than the things I need to learn, because of the systems and the way and places that I'm in. I feel like I have to I've learned a lot of things that I'm like, this is not the right way to do things, or this is not the way that I want to at least be able to live my life or create these conditions or habits in my life. So just definitely want to affirm you and appreciate you for what you do.
Thank you.
So of course, June is Pride Month. And say it again.
It's Pride Month.
or at least it's the 1 month that everyone else celebrates Pride. I celebrate Pride every month. Every month to me, every day is Pride Day. Every month is Pride Month. But more people happen to celebrate in June.
The corporate people, they celebrate Pride.
Yes. And so, what does Pride Month mean to you, and how do you celebrate Pride?
Oh, well, I celebrate Pride like every other Black gay person, and that's during Martin Luther King Jr. weekend. Okay, we go to Atlanta and go to never mind, I'm gonna leave that alone.
I'm like, that sounds like a whole nother film.
No, I'm just saying. Pride to me, I know different people define it in different ways, but pride to me means truly celebrating who you are and really enjoying who you are and having fun being who you are, whatever that is. That's pride for me. And, just like you, I celebrate it whenever I get ready, because sometimes I'd be done being gay. I'd be like, you know what, I'm not gay this week. I'm done. And then I come back the next week and it's Pride all over again.
Well, shout out. You may see my painting here, but shout out. That's a painting of our trans sister, Marsha P. Johnson. So wanted to give a shout out to her. And, one thing that I like to just remind folks, I use Pride as a reminder of the history of Pride, especially to your point, the corporatization and the commercialization of pride. I'm like, y'all, if y'all actually knew the history, and that pride started because of police violence.
That's
And
right.
it was transgender folks like fighting back, you might have a different perspective. And so I definitely use it as an opportunity to share that, because I think even through my own politicization, and as I've learned about how, you know, the ways in which systemic violence has impacted people of color, particularly queer folks, and particularly queer folks, and especially trans folks, that it's humbling for me to be like, okay, they are part of the reason why I could be able to live as freely as I am now. And so what is my responsibility? Lift up the histories and herstories of of our of our ancestors and transcestors, but also what ongoing work are we going to need to continue to do to ensure justice and freedom for all of us and all of our people and all of our people moving forward too. You know.
That's right.
And you know, and speaking of some challenging times, I would be remiss not to mention the multiple things that the Supreme Court showed us or made decisions around last week. In particular, overturning Roe versus Wade, which, as many folks know, eliminated the constitutional right to abortion. Which affects everyone, including men and non-binary and trans and intersex people, because I feel like I continue to hear folks erase them in the narratives and the stories. Yes, women get abortions, but women aren't the only ones who get abortions. So just wanted to just note that here. And I don't know if you've been following, but you know, there's been lots of other discussion that other rights, especially LGBTQ rights and protections, additional ones are going to be on the chopping block next. And so, you know, I know a lot of folks are feeling lots of different feels. Some folks are probably still processing. Like, how would you tell people to stay encouraged in this ongoing fight, or what do you offer in terms of what you do when kind of there seems to be a lot of news or things going on that will have such huge impacts on our communities?
I stay in the house and I eat rotisserie chicken. No, I'm just playing. You know, it's affecting people in different ways. One of my friends, he said he'd been trying to get away from his husband for a long time. So he said he hoped they so he said he hoped they end it. But you know, seriously, again, the only thing that we can do is recognize it for what it is and do what we know we need to do. And some people need to learn. You know, I think that for a lot of, we have great allies, great white allies, but white people are very logical. You know, people of color, ethnic folks, you know, can be pretty emotional about stuff, and that's cool. But we can't just be standing on the street corner screaming. We have to take that and go do something with that. Turn it into some action. So, and don't be burning up no CVS. Go down there and start burning up the city council buildings and those sorts of places. I know, you know, this is not Greg's idea. That's my idea. So trouble come, you know, y'all come. But like, if people are going to create some sort of revolution, it needs to be something that's very serious and that's really going to get people's attention. You know, everybody has done it except for the United States. France has done it. All these other countries have done it, where they have gone and they have attacked the capitals. And in order to really make, you know, a statement, sometimes it does take being that extreme. And I don't mean it, you know, necessarily with fire, even though I do, but but sometimes, you know, you have to completely, and I mean this, I don't mean this in a literal sense. Sometimes you have to burn things completely down and start all over again. That means the way that we do politics in this country, the way votes are counted in this country, the things that people should get to vote on as citizens. You know, there's certain things that shouldn't be left up to people who've been sitting up on the Supreme Court since Harriet Tubman was running around.
Yeah.
You know, people old as hell. There should be some term limits.
Yeah. Yep. No, I appreciate what you're saying, because how I'm taking what you're saying is, yes, yes, protest, yes, go, yes, be out in the streets when needed, but it needs to be strategic, and it needs to make sure that it's actually addressing the people that actually could make those decisions. And so, to your point, like, I didn't necessarily literally mean burn down city council, but like, are they other city councils? Are the board of supervisors? Are members of Congress? Is the president, the White House, feeling the same amount of pressure that you are putting on some of these other places and communities? And if not, how could we create more space for that, or how could we support more folks to do that? Because I think you're exactly right. I think that there's a lot of anger and a lot of frustration, and rightfully so. But my hope is that it could be directed more at folks who actually could shift the policies, or, to your point, to support folks who are trying to build something new and folks haven't necessarily learned about or knew about it yet. And so that it creates more space for more of that visioning, more of those ideas of like, oh, this is what an alternative world could look like. This is what justice and freedom could be for our people. And to make sure that it's connected, strategic, and moving us in a forward direction.
Yes, and I think another thing too is that a lot of us, are learning that there are a lot of things that we don't know about the law. So in my closet right now, I have a little booklet that outlines what the Constitution is. I think it's very important for all minorities to learn what their constitutional rights are, what the amendments are, all those different things. And I'm a little extreme in my politics, Greg, so bear with me. I think that more of us need to own guns. And I bet you if we start going out in big numbers, registering, got braces on, you know what I'm trying to say. If we go out there and we start to register weapons, I bet you we get gun control.
Yep. And that's for me, that has been what has been most frustrating over the last couple of weeks, is this juxtaposition of literally bodies are being more controlled than guns. It is harder to now. It is going to be harder to literally get an abortion than it is to buy a gun. And this is after multiple mass shootings. And in speaking of guns, and I might stir the pot here some more to inspire me a little bit. Congress passed and Joe Biden signed some gun prevention measures, which, okay, but one thing that it was glaringly missing from that was a ban on assault weapons. And for me, I'm like, how performative was this piece of legislation that literally something that a majority of folks support, that literally would have meant that for at least a lot of the mass shootings, that recent ones that happened, that those military style weapons would be banned from the streets, wasn't included. And so it just, for me, just reminded me of being in a capitalistic system, how much money controls. And of course, if you go look at the money and you see how much money the gun lobby, the NRA and other gun lobby is giving to different folks, I mean, that'll give you the answers about why some of those policies aren't being passed. But again, back to your point of, this is why we need to put more fuel to the fire. People, unless they feel the pressure, and unless folks are saying, hey, like, we are gonna vote you out, or hey, we're gonna vote for someone that actually shares more of our values, or hey, we're gonna build this whole new system because what you built or what has been built doesn't work for us. We need to kind of build more of that and get more folks on board.
Yeah, and I think that more minorities need to understand how money works, because that's a lot of it is a money game, and we're going to see more of this, particularly with inflation going on. That's when these sorts of politics do come into play. And what's even worse, again, is they know that Black folks and other minorities are emotional. So right when we get to this point where it's like, we got to do whatever we need to do no matter what, then they will say, oh, well, I got a black female vice president and, you know, vote. And then I've seen Kamala Harris 3 times since she's been in office.
Mm.
And, you know, and she should be out more because Joe Biden, it's time for him to take a nap.
It's, yeah. No, you know, I think that this is, you know, I feel like this is a whole nother conversation just about identity politics and about just not all skin folk are kinfolk, and that there's a balance, right? Of like, yes, representation matters and representation is important, but that's representation isn't the only thing we should be looking at. You know, what are their values? Like how are they uplifting up and how are they lifting up and supporting communities, especially those who are the most marginalized in our communities? How are we creating space for other folks to share their own stories and to be their own bosses and leaders and organizers and comedians and producers and artists and creatives? And so I always have to like that. I have to remind folks that, like, look, yes, it's important that some of these folks share some of our identities, but that literally can't be the only checkbox that we look at. Or we really have to be more critical, but also more expansive and holistic in terms of how we look at folks and how much they're actually supporting and impacting communities.
Yes, and we have to do it. The people who are in the communities right here, where we can talk to our neighbors, where we can go down to the community center, where we can organize and do, we got to do it. Because, I mean, politics is not about the people, that is about business. You know, well, some folks get a little uncomfortable when I say this, but, you know, there really is no difference between Democrats and Republicans. You know, the Democrats, they want to keep minorities in the poorhouse, and then the other ones, they want to take everything from everybody. So, you know, we truly have to be about community.
Yeah. You know, and I would, you know, I'm gonna kind of continue to push a little bit like what you were saying, but I would say, at least for me, at least the Republicans are, I think one difference is that the Republicans are not shy about who they care about. And they're like, we don't care, and we're going to do all we need to do, and we're going to be a united front. And the Democrats act like they care, but then when push comes to shove and we really need some leadership and some action, it's like
they get beat up.
They're nowhere to be around, and if anything, they're not strategic. And so for me, I'm like, it's actually true. You can't be mad when people are like, we don't understand the difference, because literally you have not given people enough reason to understand the difference. And so I appreciate you stirring that pot, and I think we should continue to stir the pot, because I also think we should get rid of the party system, and that we should go, as I've been learning more about some of the indigenous ways of governance, things should be much more communal and neighborhood focused, and that's where the resources should be decided. That's where a lot of other decisions should be decided, because different things impact folks differently based on kind of where you're at. And so all that to say, like, I've been learning to be like, okay, what was it like? What was governance, self-governance, and sovereignty like before colonization? And it was much more localized, hyper localized. So I would encourage folks, if you haven't read about it, to encourage you to check it out, because I think that in some ways building anew means just actually going back to some of our indigenous and indigenous culture and some of the things that our people used to do in the countries that they were in.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's, I think a lot of liberal people, liberal leaning, they need to learn how to fight. They some punks. They be getting their asses whooped.
Yes.
And I don't lose fights, so I don't know, and I'm gonna have to figure something out, because I mean, the thing about Republicans, I like the fact that they fight and they win, and I'm like,
yes, I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I don't agree with what you're fighting for, but I gotta respect that you're fighting for it, and you're fighting for it like you actually want to win.
Yeah, and they fight. They whoop ass, and they be whooping everybody's ass. You know, they be whooping the gay community's ass. They whoop women's asses. They whoop poor people's asses. They be whooping black people. They whoop everybody's ass. They be whooping each other's ass.
It's so true. Unfortunately, so true. Um, so on a lighter note, this is another question I like to ask folks. It's a similar question that RuPaul asks to different drag queens. But if you could offer, or an iteration of it, but if you could offer a gem of wisdom to the younger Sampson, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a good one. If I could offer a gem, and this would be just to me, I think this would be to any young person, is don't sweat the small stuff. Take life as it comes and just go along for the ride. And yeah, that's what I would say. I think when you are young, everything, it depends on how you were raised too. But a lot of times you think everything is the end of the world. If that boy doesn't like you back, it's the end of the world. Or if you don't get that job, or if you make a mistake, or whatever, you know, you think it's the end of the world, and it's not the end of the world. You know, keep going. You have so much more to experience.
Mm. So that's a note. So let's hold that to not just for the younger Sampson, but for other young folks. Let's take that and encourage folks with that. I guess before I go to our final question, I wanted to actually give you an opportunity to ask me a question. If there's a question that you'd like to ask me.
Yes. What inspires the work that you do?
I would say I think a lot about my parents, and I think this in particular is kind of particularly poignant right now because I actually just came back from a vacation with them, and Terrence, my sister, and her partner. And one thing that I realized, or what was reminded of, at least this last couple of weeks, is that just the humble beginnings that my parents came from, and how every decision they made was to try to give me and my sister a better chance at life. And my goal was to not just pay it forward to them, but also pay it forward to other folks, and to figure out, okay, if I'm gonna do this business, or if I'm gonna write this thing, how do I share my story, but also do so in a way that allows other folks to feel like they can share their stories too, and that they can be their full selves too. And so it's been a learning journey with my parents. They haven't always agreed with all of me and all aspects of me, but as I've gotten more comfortable with myself and stepped into my own leadership and power, it's allowed me to push back sometimes, or ask questions, or to help them give learning moments, and for them to kind of push me to make sure I actually believed what I said I believed in, and could be able to go toe to toe or back and forth with the curiosity and the questions they had. And so, and then I think the other thing that I would say is I was bullied a lot. And so I think that I internalized a lot of why I was bullied into homophobia, into racism. And I've been in a healing journey, but it's like for a long time, but especially these last 4 or 5 years. And so they also they were also reminding me that, like, yes, it's great that you are unlearning and on this healing journey, but don't be too hard on yourself. And I just always appreciated about them. They extended so much grace, even when I knew I didn't deserve it. And so,
No, I think you always deserve grace.
So thank you for that reminder. And my parents remind me of that. So they are the reason why I am inspired to do this work. Even if it's been hasn't been always, even though there have been some multiple bumps in the road.
That's what reminds you why you do the work, and that's what gives you the story, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we're getting ready to be to close out this conscious conversation. But before we close out, I wanted to give you an opportunity if you wanted to shout out any current campaigns or projects you're working on, or if there are ways that people can support you. What could those be? This is your chance to plug what you'd like to people to check out.
Oh, well, thank you. I want people most of all to support themselves. I want to do that, and be good to themselves. I think that is the first project everybody needs to be working. And then secondly, I just had a premiere Sunday for a new film that I directed called Rouge Blues. And that was written by Donnie Hugh Frazier, who was he's in two of my films, Love the One You're With and Party and Play. And it was just beautiful how Black gay Los Angeles showed up for that film. And the film is beautiful. Of course, I am the co-executive producer of B-Boy Blues on BET Plus. And so it is important that people go watch that, because this is a Black network, and they need to understand that there is an audience for our stories. Okay, so when they see those numbers, and it is a numbers-based business we're in, that opens up the door to create other opportunities for other Black queer creatives. And so when you get other people who come down the pipeline with some other Black queer story that needs to be seen, now you have a network who says, well, we know there's an audience of both gay and straight people who want to see these. Let's welcome some more in. And then I'm touring. I'll be in Chicago Saturday at the Sidetrack Video Bar at 2 p.m. And I'll be in DC August the 25th through the 27th at DC Comedy Law. So get tickets at dccomedylaw.com. And I'm everywhere. Just if you see what I'm doing, if you see me out, say hi. If you see what I'm doing, share it with your people. Support it. I got YouTube videos. Just support the stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, if you aren't already following Sampson, please follow Sampson on Instagram, on Twitter, YouTube. And just thank you again, Sampson. It's been a pleasure to just be in conversation with you, hear a little bit more of your story and your experience. And as I mentioned before, thank you so much for always being willing to lift up, especially other queer creatives and queer creatives of color in particular. And look forward to continued building, sending you so much love. And I know I'll be seeing you out sometime soon. So looking forward to it.
Yes, likewise. Thank you for everything.
All right. Have a great rest of your day, and happy Pride today and every day, y'all.
Happy Pride every day. I'll see y'all in Martin Luther King Jr. weekend. No, I'm just playing.